as you're growing up, you always want to find a way to kind of give thanks to, to your grandmother and your mother and everything like that. And this was my way. I was like, let me do a Grana.
Welcome back to Brew Talks. I'm Steve Stroud, President and CEO of Roswell, Inc. We're the economic development organization here in the city of Roswell.
I'm Andy Williams, President and CEO of Visit Roswell, with the official destination marketing organization for the city of Roswell. And we have an amazing guest on today. We always have amazing guests, but this one's super special because it has a lot of stuff cooking, no pun intended. And this is Pat Pascarella, the owner of Grana, which is coming to Roswell and soon to be calling Southern Post home. And it is beautiful. We were able to take a sneak peek actually pretty recently here, and it's incredible. So, Pat, we're going to start off. We just want to talk to you about your background. You've done a lot of really successful things with restaurants in your career, but how did it all get started? Kind of walk us through what you started doing at a young age with it.
So, first of all, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be honest. For a while, I've been seeing this on, and I'm like, when the hell are they going to ask me? I want to be honest.
Here we are.
All right, so I'm going to go way back. So when I was 5, I learned how to make pasta, right? So I was the kid that instead of being instead of focusing on kid stuff, I was cooking, right? My grandmother was there. At a very young age, I was an old soul, right? So I knew that I wasn't going to have a lot of time with her, right? That was just the thing. So I was like, all right, well, let me learn as much as possible.
It's cool.
So fast forward, 6, she's teaching me how to make bread. Then when I was 8, we went to Italy for the first time, right? And it's funny, I tell this story all the time, and half of the people believe me, the other half didn't. I remember coming back from Italy, looking my mom in the eye on the plane saying, I want to be a chef. And she's like, why? She's like, her first thing out of her mouth is she goes, women cook, not men. That's the way it was back then, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know. I was like, if this is what food is supposed to taste like, this is what I want to do for a living. And it wasn't until I was 13 where I was just so happened to be at a party, and it was at my buddy's house, and his uncle just opened a restaurant, and he's like, hey, what's your name? And I was like, Pat. He goes, you want a job? And I was like, I was like, yeah, I'd love one. He's like, no, for real. Like, I need a dishwasher tomorrow at noon. So I was like, yeah, okay. So they thought it was funny that they told me to be there at noon, but they didn't show up till 2. So I was sitting outside for 2 hours just waiting. I was like, maybe I don't have the job. Did I get fired already? Like, how does this work? And from that moment on, I just kind of just embraced it all. Like, I still did kid stuff. I was a really good baseball player, and I grew up just around that, always around competitive sports. But cooking, I just felt like was just one of those things that like kind of just found me. And I ever since then just kind of hit the ground running and just kind of never stopped. I think the reason why Grana is so important to me is that it's my mom and it's my grandmother's food. It's not my food.
Yeah.
Like that food I've been cooking and I've been eating since I was born.
Yeah.
So like and it's so funny because everybody's like, you're a great chef. I'm like, you want to call my mom and tell her?
Yeah.
It's her food.
There you go,
I was like, maybe I've tweaked recipes a little bit, but it's their food. And I think that, as you're growing up, you always want to find a way to kind of give thanks to, to your grandmother and your mother and everything like that. And this was my way. I was like, let me do a Grana. And, we had this restaurant. This restaurant was actually called Bar Sugo in Norwalk, Connecticut. That was Grana. Wow. When I moved to Atlanta, I sold it and I moved here and I opened White Bowl.
Yeah.
And I always missed cooking that style of food because it's fun and there's no foo-foo-ness. It's just good food, And I was like, you know what, we got to do one. And then I met my business partner, Brian, and I was like, he had a different vision. He wanted it more to be like a walk up, kind of like Antico's, up, you order, you sit down, we find you. But Grana 1 is 10,000 square feet. I was like, how the hell are we going to find you?
Wow, yeah.
Imagine you come order and it's like you have like the number 1 card and you're on the roof. I have to do laps before I find you. So I'm like, we have to do a sit down. And to be honest, like, Dunwoody opened up a little rocky because I just think that we didn't do enough to really get behind it and push it. And plus we just opened Alici in Bastone and it was like a lot in a row.
Yeah.
And now it's finally hit its stride, which is great. And it's just in time for this about to open in a couple months. So it's exciting, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's really exciting.
Well, and Steve and I always ask the question, Sometimes people end up in Roswell just because, maybe a spouse's job has brought them here, or maybe they've sought out Roswell. Sometimes it's just a resident that grew up here that wants to, keep their roots here. Come back. We see that a lot, actually. College students coming back, which you'd never really think that, but, they go off and they realize, man, Roswell's a great place to call home. Why would I not start my family and my business here? What is it about Roswell that brought you and Megan here?
So 2015, we found out we were pregnant with Colin.
Mm-hmm. Good kid, by the way. Great baseball player.
He's a great kid. He's a little pain in my butt lately, but he's really he's just bored all the time.
Kids.
He goes to school. He's so smart. He goes to school, and like the teacher's like, all right, we're doing 3 times 4. He's like, can we do square roots? He's like, I'm bored out of my mind. And he comes home and he's like, Dad, I don't like math anymore. I was like, would you stop?
Slow down.
So in 2015, I kind of knew it was time for a change, but like, you can't live in Italy unless you're 70 and plus, because if you have drive like me, there's nothing to do there. Like you go there to just enjoy, and you can't enjoy when you're 35 years old and you're trying to make a name for yourself. Sure. So then we started coming here. My brother-in-law was living here at the time, and he was in Druid Hills, and he's like, just come down and just visit. So we came down and visited. And I think I visited by myself after that about 9 times in 2015. I was offered a position at Fort Fry. Yeah. And they said, hey, why don't you come on board and be a chef de cuisine? And I was like, with all due respect, I go, I'm better than that. Like, I don't want to listen to somebody else above me when I'll cook this guy under the table any day of the week. And so I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I have to pass. So the following year, it was like August, I get a call from Ford, and he's like, hey, we fired that guy. Do you want to be the executive chef? And I was like, absolutely. And I go, but I can't move till January. And he's like, oh man, he's like, can't move in a couple weeks. And I'm like, no, dude. I was like, it doesn't work that way. I was like, I got to sell a restaurant. I got stuff to do. I got to sell a house. Like, I got stuff to do. Yeah. And it ended up working out. So that year in 2015, when we were here, my brother-in-law took us to Roswell. And we're driving up Canton, and I look at Meg, and Meg looks at me, and she goes, this is it. And I was like, It is it. I was like, I want to move here. And so we move, and then, like, you just don't know Atlanta. So, like, I'm always, everybody's like, traffic. It's a mess. It's a disaster. So we moved literally like 4 feet away from the Optimist. I was like, it just makes my life easier,
Right.
But every year where we were like looking for a house or something like that, we always were looking at Roswell. And then we always just sat there and go, all right, maybe it's not time yet. And now, Colin was in school. Colin was at Morris Brandon in Buckhead.
Yeah.
Hated it. Like, absolutely hated it. He hated everything about it. He needs to be challenged. He's a kid that like just wants to put his head down and be challenged. My daughter's the creative one. She doesn't want to be challenged at all. She just wants to draw all day.
Yeah.
Where my son just wants, there is no such thing as creative writing for Colin.
Right.
It's right or wrong. So he would get into like, he'd be like, what do you mean creative writing? And she's like, yeah, just write whatever you feel like. He's like, so what's the right answer? And she's like, there is no right answer. And he was troubled by it.
Yeah.
And I think, and he was just like blowing through everything. And we were in a condo on a golf course, and like, I don't have time to play golf.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, but it was nice. And I'll be honest, like, since I moved here, it's a totally different life.
It's a different lifestyle.
Getting out of Atlanta. Like, now I just hate going in Atlanta, which sucks, because like I have 4 restaurants there and I got to go. But so many days I'm like, I really don't want to go to Alici. It's in Midtown.
No, man, I'm with you. So I used to work up in North Forsyth County and had to drive to 10th Street every day. And I mean, it took a toll for 3.5 years. Yeah. Now I'm 3.5 miles from the office. And if I have to go like south of the river, I'm kicking and screaming. Oh, yeah. Like, are you kidding me? I got to go south of Sandy Springs. Like, what?
It makes a big difference, right? And you came up here, you said, I think this is it. That's what people do. They come here and they go, this is it. Yep, this is it. And we're not leaving. And which is great because it builds that sense of community.
Yep.
And that's why we're 100,000 people.
And that's the one thing I realized right off the rip was like the community sense in Roswell. Yeah. Right.
Big.
Like Andy was my son's coach, and just meeting him and he's like, yo, I know Grana, and then we just became become buddies, and like it's just a thing, and I love that. And like, he's coaching Saturday morning baseball. My son went and attended it, and he loved it. He's like, I want Coach Andy as my coaching. And I was like, you got to drop down a year, kid. I don't know how it works.
We can figure something out.
Paperwork. We'll figure it out.
And that is the beauty of it. I mean, we always talk about whether it's dance at Tolbert Yomez or it's rec ball or it's lacrosse. Two of my girls played lacrosse and one danced. I mean, it's just a sense of community that you don't always get in every community.
Agree.
And you see everybody. Like, for 100,000 people, it sure does seem like 10,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you run into each other
all the time.
Whether it's school, whether it's on Canton Street, whether it's at the ballpark, it's always happening.
You know, it's funny you say that. Explore Georgia just did a feature on us, and the actual headline of the blog post is like 5 small towns in Georgia.
That's it.
And it's funny because when you look at our population, I think, what are we, the 8th largest city?
8th largest city
in the state of Georgia, but that it does not have that feel to
Not
it,
at all.
community-wise and aesthetically, even, you know, in most parts of the city.
So, Pat, tell us about Grana and Southern Post. Obviously, Andy and I got a chance to take a peek. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were talking about it earlier. It's going to be the gym at Southern Post. Not that there's not going to be great other opportunities there, but you're right front and center. And tell us a little bit about the space. You're going to have some private dining space, which is really needed in downtown. Yes.
So Southern Post got pitched to us a while back, right? I still remember we were at Grana. I think we were only a year, maybe 2 years in. And I remember looking at our realtor being like, oh, you're still far away. I was like, why are we looking at this? She's like, you need to look at it. And I was like, okay. So I remember coming up here and I'm like, there's nothing to look at. There's nothing there, you know? So I was like, all right. I was like, I need to see renderings. So she sends me renderings. She shows me the space. And right off the rip, I go, I want that space right there. And she's like, why? I was like, because I want their rooftop feel without the roof, because I will never do another rooftop restaurant. Grana 1 it just leaks every day. Even when it doesn't rain, it leaks. It's insane. You know, we've redone the roof 3 times. You know, 80, 90 grand at a pop, 3 times, just redoing the roof, and it still leaks. The only way I would build another rooftop bar is if it was like pure. See how they built it onto the front of the building? I would do something like that.
Put it out.
So I'm like, ooh, I want that space. It has that feel, you know? And then when we started looking at how we want it to look, we had a previous designer that designed all of our other Granas, and then this one actually was designed by my partner's wife.
Okay.
Brian's wife, Laura Lee, designed it, and it's the prettiest one by far.
It's
I walked it literally before I got here, and I go, "This is insane." And I just remember Meg right off the rip, like just fully engulfed herself in Roswell moms, all that stuff, and every single day people are asking where to have parties.
Yeah.
And Meg was like, you need to put a PDR in, a private dining room. And I was like, oh man, I was like, yeah. So she keeps showing me all this, and I was like, I called Laura Lee. I was like, we got to change the layout of this. And she's like, we're like done designing. I was like, we need to change the layout. So then we go and tour the space after it's being built, and the bar was supposed to be on the far wall to the left.
Was it? Okay.
And I look at it and I go, I was like, with the PDR where it is, I was like, we need to put an indoor-outdoor bar. I was like, it has to be a thing. So we just keep redesigning the space every couple weeks, because I'm like, this makes sense now, you know, and just the feel is so much better, you know, and I like the pizza oven being front and center. You could see it, and it's a focus from the bar, because my idea is I want to have classes all the time.
Oh, that's
like I want to have kids classes on like every Saturday morning. I want to do pasta making classes all the time. Like, it's a fun way to get yourself involved in the community and meeting people. So like our idea was going to be for the whole month of November is offering a free class on Saturday mornings just for kids under 10.
How cool.
And then, and the thing is like, you know, obviously we need to make money. The moms are going to come and spend a ton of money at the bar. And but I want the wine will be good, you know, because it's a great feeling when you connect with the kids, because the kids are the ones, you know, when we go out to dinner, it's where our kids want to go.
That's right.
Yeah. Unless we have date night, it's where our kids want to go. And, you know, like I remember so many times like, I can't believe we're eating at Bad Daddy's Burger Bar again this week. And Meg's like, yeah, it's cheap, and you're out the door for $65, and the kids love it.
I mean, think about the amount of business Lucky's gets just because they've got that outdoor space.
Oh,
I mean, we were there this weekend with a group of about 12 of us. Because it was like kids can run around. Low hassle.
Yeah. So we wanted it to feel high end ish, but we wanted it to have, you know, mom and pop food. And I feel like we nailed it. You know, I think it looks really good. It looks super high end, but there's a lot of different things, like, you know, half of the food is plated on red and white checkered paper.
Oh, that's
cool. Like, you have that feel, you have the sexiness of it, but then you're also like, oh, I could see.
Right.
This makes sense, you know.
Well, and you've got a decent sized space. You got a great outside space. How many square feet is the outside?
$2,500.
Biggest outdoor patio in Roswell, right? Once you open?
100%.
It's a monster.
Mm-hmm. And you've got that, you were telling us about that automated.
So we went against it because they were having trouble trying to get it installed.
Oh, really?
So we had to go against it. So we ended up doing just, it actually allowed us to do cooler stuff. So we're now doing some fire pits on the side to allow more fun and everything. We're going to do a little cornhole section on the on the left. There's going to be our, in Atlanta, we have a best meatballs in Atlanta sign.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But the meat flickers and then it goes off and it's best balls in Atlanta.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So we're going to have best meatballs in Roswell now.
Best meatballs in Roswell.
So it'll be fun. And it's going to be like, you have to have it. Unfortunately, you can't just cook good food anymore. You have to be cool on Instagram.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a little area for like people to take pictures of.
Oh, no,
that's just creating fun environments there. And then you go inside and it's a totally different feel.
Yes.
Yeah. And lots of umbrellas, a ton of plants that we're gonna have in there. It's just gonna the next month. It's really just gonna kind of just come together.
Take a lot.
And this is the fun part of it, right? Like running a restaurant day to day is very hard.
Oh, I can
This
imagine.
part, seeing it all come together, that's so much fun. Developing a menu, that's so much fun. But like every day dealing with everybody's issues, that's the hard part.
So what are you thinking for opening? I know Southern Post things are starting to open. You got the coffee shop. The Lux is now open. Mid-October. Okay, coming up.
Mid-October, 2 months. Up. Yeah, I think we should be able to be in there with like very little things happening, probably by second or third week in September. And then it'll take me about 3 to 4 weeks to get it open after that.
Okay, right around the corner.
The only thing I'm doing different this time with the Granas that I did with the previous is I'm opening it as the chef.
Okay.
There is nobody else. There's me and then there's chefs underneath me. It's not me overseeing it all with chefs in place. I'm opening it. I wanted it to be that way, especially for Roswell. It's my home now.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that like everybody knew who I was and I could shake everyone's hand.
Yeah, sure.
That's great.
Makes sense.
Lunch, brunch.
Lunch every day. We're just gonna do lunch. We're not gonna call it brunch. It's lunch every day.
Lunch every day.
The way the menu's set up, it's like there's so many options to have whatever you want at any time.
You don't need to.
The only thing I'm gonna add for lunch is I'm gonna add 4 sandwiches and a burger.
Oh, nice.
Call it a day. So that it's it's handheld stuff, but. So many times we create all these cool dishes, shakshuka, play on shrimp and grits and everything, and nobody orders it. They just like, I want the Roni pizza with honey on it.
Well, on that note too, I know you guys are famous for your meatballs and all that good stuff, and I think I texted you about 8 times a few nights ago. But is it the wood fire grilled chicken or what?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, I don't know what you put. I'm not going to ask you to give your recipe away, but I wouldn't normally order chicken at a restaurant, of course, unless it's like Table and Main's fried chicken. Because I feel like chicken sometimes is just a waste.
The Table Main's fried chicken.
Oh yeah, it's some of the best. And now we're gonna have the best meatballs. But that chicken, I mean, it's worth it for everybody to get to order that chicken off your menu. It's good stuff.
So we'll have the meatball flight, right? Of course.
That's never gonna come.
That sold us when we went down and met our kids down at your Grana 1.
Yep.
And man, it was like, a meatball selection.
So the story behind it is. Each one of them is from a different part of my life.
Right? Really?
So number 1, that's my mom's meatball. That's what I grew up eating 90% of the time.
Okay.
Right? The second one's a pork meatball. My father refused to make meatballs unless it had 100% pork in it because he loved just then making a sandwich with it. And he said because of pork having more fat, it would have a snap almost like a hot dog. And then number 3, I just told the story before. Number 3 is known as meatball. That was my grandmother's meatball.
Okay.
And she used to have raisins in it, and I hated it as a kid. It's a real Sicilian thing, which makes no sense to me because we're from Naples.
Okay.
So I don't get it.
You don't know.
So she would have them in it, and I hated it as a kid. Like I was telling, like I literally, you would see me spitting them out at the table into a bowl, and there's like 80 in one meatball because her meatballs were like the size of this. They were monster meatballs.
Goodness gracious, yeah.
And then so now I took the raisins out, made them currants instead of raisins, and I put them on top.
Okay,
but it's more of like so what I did is I cook it with red wine, white wine, and a lot of sugar, and with the currants, so it's more of like a mostarda or like a jam. But it's really, really good.
Okay.
The number 4 is the meatball I tell everybody that landed me Meg, my wife.
Okay.
It used to be a burger. So it was a local beef burger in Connecticut, smoked Gouda, caramelized onions, truffle jam, and then like a rosemary aioli. I took the aioli out, but I turned it all into a meatball.
Okay.
Sophia, my daughter, refused to eat any meatballs unless it was deep fried. So that's number 5.
What?
It's a deep fried veal meatball.
It's the best.
Yeah,
it's the bomb.
It's one of my favorite, and it's got like a spicy sauce on top. It's really good. And then the last one is my grandmother in Italy. So my dad's mom, it was her meatball.
Okay.
And that's the meatball. If you went to Naples, that's the meatball you would have. 50% beef, 25% veal, 25% pork.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it's like it's such a cool thing to do, and it's so funny. Put a group of 6 at a table, everyone likes a different one.
Oh yeah, I can
That's
imagine.
the thing that's so funny about. And that's the thing about wine. It's the thing about food. Like it's all perception. It's all what you want. You know, it's all what you
it
like.
is. 100%. That's exactly right.
So like that chicken, you may think it's fantastic. Somebody else doesn't like it.
Well, they're crazy.
Yeah. Well, you know how many times it gets sent back because they're like, it's too vinegary? And I'm
No
like,
way. That's what made it what it.
I go, that's the point.
Yes.
Without it, it doesn't taste like anything.
Yeah,
it's just
right.
chicken.
It's just chicken.
Yeah.
That chicken was ridiculous.
Well,
It's so good.
It's awesome. You know, Zach Brown always talks about all good things happen around a table, and with food on it. And you have added that. You're adding that back into Roswell. You know, we're such a foodie town anyway, and like you said, the kids dominate until they're out the door of where you're going to go eat. So having that family atmosphere, but also having a place that we can go have a business lunch and a dinner is so important. So first of all, I say thank you for your investment in Roswell. Thank you for moving here because you've just upped the ante for this guy over here and making sure you keep him honest on his baseball.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just telling you, I had to hand the lacrosse stick off to somebody else, so I'm done with lacrosse until I got grandkids. But it's a good thing, and you all are the next generation, and we're here to support you and make sure it goes great for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations, and we look forward to cutting that ribbon, man.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's going to be fun and having a few samples.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
You're
so close. I just sent him down here.
I know.
I'm a crooked 9-iron from here to my house, so we've already been in and out with the golf cart, in and out of Southern Post
We're
on a
walking
regular
distance
basis.
from here.
That's
And
my next purchase. My kids keep asking. They're like, "Can you get a golf cart?"
It's so much fun.
Yes, I'll get
You'll
it.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, cheers, Pat.